Welcome back into another edition of Kolby's Corner Live, coming to you here from Blacksburg, Virginia on Monday, September 8th, following Virginia Tech's 44-20 loss to Vanderbilt at home. A little bit late here getting live, walking back from class here, and it's getting a little chilly. You can feel it in the air, but it's not the only chill that you can feel. Definitely still a chill from the weekend and the drubbing that was that overtime, not even over, second half performance from Virginia Tech against Vanderbilt. Don't even know where to start. Had all day to stack this show on where to start and go over the experience that was that in Lane Stadium and couldn't really find a good starting point. So we're just going to sort of struggle our way and talk through this because at the end of the day, this is a performance-based job. If I don't do a good enough job, my performance will be shown. If people involved don't do a good enough job, it's a performance-based deal here. You got to perform. And that just performance on Saturday wasn't up to the standard. So we'll get into pieces of that, break some things down. I'm sure there will be some comments in the live chat I'll try to get to. But first off, appreciate everyone jumping in here. Appreciate the continued support. Obviously, a lot of emotional reactions over on vtscoop.com, the message board. And I know I had a lot of content come out today considering recruiting, and a lot of that might seem a little futile, obviously, considering the current standing and exactly what happened on Saturday, and worrying about high school recruiting may seem a little asinine, but definitely go check those out as they try and keep classes together, even with obviously all the looming proceedings in the air. But first off, just where to start. We've got to talk about it. Saturday night was a breaking point for a lot of fans. VT blows a 20-10 halftime lead, gets outscored 34-0 in the second half by Vanderbilt. That stat still rings so true. I mean, you want to talk about being a box score merchant when you see 34-0 in Lane Stadium in the second half at home. I mean, that's just straight belt to butt. I mean, there's no other way to put that. I guess let's just try and talk about what happened, why it happened, and where this just leaves Brent Pry and Virginia Tech football as a whole. First off, I mean, we can talk about that first half a little bit, but just jumping into it, that second half collapse was a pure embarrassment for everyone involved. Virginia Tech got outgained 307-21 in the second half. And until some of that last second garbage time, they were in negative figures in yards. Vanderbilt ran it 27 times for 199 yards in the second half. 5 touchdowns on 5 straight drives in the second half from Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt didn't punt at all in the game. Virginia Tech's defense that you saw against South Carolina was swarming. Because the offense was so stagnant, they couldn't get off the field. They didn't get pressure on Pavia, no pushing up front, bad gap integrity from the linebackers, and poor secondary play, honestly, overall. I think on the offense, Virginia Tech, they didn't get a non-penalty first down in the second half until under 2 minutes in garbage time. It just shows you how much of a struggle it is and how you really need to take a step back and reevaluate everything. I wasn't around covering the team in 2019 for Duke, but it definitely draws some similarities to that and how people are feeling. It was just really, really tough sort of watching that unfold. And I think what makes it so tough is when you saw them up 20-10 at halftime and then just come out so just flat in the second half. Like we were talking about, Sam Cephas' defense looked like a strength in week 1 and then exposed in week 2. Against South Carolina, you saw things that you could draw impressions upon. And, it's a foolish man to draw conclusions after week 1, maybe take observations. And then in week 2, a massive regression. And you even saw signs of that. Like in the first half, the Quentin Reddish interception, like I said, in the Kolby's Corner right after from Lane Stadium, Quentin Reddish's interception was great. Hickman getting in there, forcing the fumble was great to have those 2 turnovers, which made that half go a lot better. But Vanderbilt still, for the most part, was getting what they wanted. And there was just no adjustment. Players looked confused on the motion, the option, the trick plays, and just polling a couple people, getting an overwhelming amount of texts and calls from people. People felt helpless watching it unfold and are very, very disappointed, obviously, with the result. I can't even point to what exactly was the most embarrassing part of the second half, but there was a litany of things that we'll get into, I'm sure. Starting off just with the offense, I think talking about the offensive line is definitely in crisis mode. When you look, I think a big turning point in the game was when obviously Johnny Garrett, starting left tackle, went down. And when you saw that right before the half, it was sort of a massive inflection point besides everything else that was already going on. When we've been covering all throughout fall camp that this offensive line was dangerously thin, and your rotational pieces of Brody Meadows and Jaden Muskrat weren't available. It doesn't sound like Brody Meadows is going to be available for some time, as we've been saying on the site. And Jaden Muskrat, this comes back to why was this position group so shallow and not ready to play at this level? And it just goes back to hires. It goes back to Rudolph's recruiting class, and especially Ron Kirk's recruiting class. And, Brent Pry is the one making these hires. And when you bring in these guys and they don't recruit to the position, and then you get left with the depth. And then if Matt Moore doesn't even bring in those West Virginia guys, what does the room look like? If you don't get a very, very late flyer on Jaden Muskrat, who's just someone who's seen a lot of college football but didn't even project in the starting lineup, it doesn't exude a lot of confidence in where that position group was. And overall, it is just a failure that you roll out Tommy Ricard and Aiden Lynch. Now, I think Aiden Lynch is nothing against these players. Like, I think they will develop into good players. But the fact that you have to rely on them to take their first live bullets against Vanderbilt and pretty much the entire offense get pantsed in front of Lane Stadium, it's really tough and an indictment on everyone involved there. And it's just, like I said, for all that the offseason was made to be and make or break season, everything on the line, people understood the situation. For everyone to still come out and pack Lane Stadium like they did, the fan base was still completely behind it. Like, it was the most packed I'd seen it from the student section perspective. The alleyways, like, lining up or completely filled over in the student section over capacity, and to be up 20-10 and then just get completely pantsed like that with 50 plus recruits, with everything going on. It's just a real awakening when you see Brent Pry. We'll get into it. 1-7 in his last, or 1-6, whatever the stat is, 16-23 overall, 1-6 in his last 7. It's just a really, really tough indictment. And I think people were ready to rally behind. This could have been a massive turning point to get that Power 4 out of conference win, to get just so many things. It's the first home opener loss since 2015. It's the first time, even in Brent Pry's tumultuous tenure, you start off 0-2. And now, you don't want to look too far ahead because we still have a lot to talk about, but you got a really good Old Dominion team. I hopped on a podcast earlier today with James Catato from Wavy TV 10, and the line has dropped from it opened at like 10. Now it's down to 7.5. This is an ODU team that went on the road and played Indiana really tough. This is a team that went and they just beat North Carolina Central big at home. They've got a gunslinger quarterback. Ricky Ronnie, their head coach, is in a similar position. Got to have a year. They've obviously given Virginia Tech fits before. Brent Pry's first game, you don't have to look far, even back to 2018. It's just, there was everything there, and now you're going to be playing in a half-full Lane Stadium. And you're going to try and recruit kids, and obviously you're going to get recruited against for the hot seat talk. That game sort of had the opportunity to flip the script and just absolutely got stoned. And it's just really tough because you have to try and dance and mince around words, but a lot of people got texts and calls after that game from people who had sort of been stonewalling and standing up for a lot of this current admin or just overall coaches and everything. And it just definitely feels like a massive inflection point in the season, in the program, in this tenure. So, I mean, there's 2 games left. We're going to go back in there on Saturday and do the same things, but there is definitely a lot going on. Yeah. Just a lot in the live chat. I mean, we'll get to some other stuff, but talking about Brent Pry, overall 16-23, 15 straight losses to Power 4 non-conference opponents dating back to 2017. I know he talked about he got here in 2022, but still, yeah, it was just tough. So it's what's next at the administration level. What's next? I mean, there were still a couple bright spots when you talk about Jarickis Harrison, his first career touchdown catch, key block on drones. I thought Emmanuel Hickman had a good game. I thought Elijah Fall played well, but overall, I mean, it was just really tough. And now you have to look straight up the chain of command before we get into other things. Like, it's obviously been the writing on the wall, but the Board of Visitors has big decisions to make. Not only with, obviously, are they going to fund Whit Babcock's $50 million in additional funding for athletics, but they're going to have some decisions to make on that end, because at this point, do you let Whit Babcock make that third football hire if things do go that way? But because now the timeline is so advanced, are you able to go find a search for a new athletic director in time? It's really, really tough, because you want to look at the athletic director, you want to look at the head coach, and now in college football, like I was just talking earlier with James Cataldo on that podcast, even some other people, it always used to be, the most important employees at a school are the president, the head football coach, the athletic director. And now, honestly, one of the most important employees is the quarterback position. And I know they're not employees, they're still amateurs, but they're getting paid. And you have to find that winning combination between all of those things and get alignment. And right now, the timelines just aren't adding up. And we'll talk about quarterback play because just breaking down the game, the offense was really, really stagnant and had a tough day. And a lot of that obviously is attributed to the guys up front. It starts with the guys up front. But Kyron Drones did not have another great game. When he was on script on that first drive, he looked good, was in rhythm, in flow. But then you talk about that missed throw to Benji Gosnell. That play could have potentially gone for a touchdown and kept the drive in rhythm. They had to settle for 3 there. I know it was late, and you don't want to put that ball in a dangerous situation, but if you give Braden Bennett more of a catchable ball, you're potentially in for 6 there. You talk about game management, even with Pry. He was there on that 4th down play. Chris Fallica quoted my tweet and said that was sort of the decisive moments. You have national guys now reaching out and just really noticing and putting an amplifier on what the game was. And you just got pants. Like you're getting called out on game day. You're getting called out on all these national platforms, not for even the entrance anymore. It's not even just Enter Sandman's great anymore. It's just that place used to be a tough place to play. That place used to be a dynamic program. And now it's just really getting exposed. And when you let a team go 34-0 in the second half on you, there's just really not many signs of life. And I know it's back-to-back SEC opponents, but then you can also go back to why was the schedule built like that. It's just an overall failure on the department. And, it's easy for me to say that here, sitting here, but it's just overall is what it is. And I started the show with it. It's a performance-based business. If I don't hold up my end of the deal, I have repercussions for my bosses, and everyone has to deal with that in their own profession. And, these people are getting compensated very well. No one's going to feel bad for them. You're coaching a football team, you're making a lot of money. You're running an athletic department, you're making a lot of money. You have to perform. It's a performance-based deal. We talked to Matt Moore, and I thought he was abundantly clear. He said pretty much the same thing. No one's going to feel bad for you. It's a performance-based deal, and it just has not been up to the standard so far this season. And I think it's extremely disappointing. And I'm not exactly sure where they go. I guess I titled this, "Where does Virginia Tech go from here?" It's sort of asinine because now the timeline has become so abbreviated. If you do have to make a change at the top, it's just a struggle. But I think I talked about with one of the most important employees is finding that quarterback. Interviewed Cole Bergeron. Did he stay in the class with everything going on? I had an interview with him over on btscoop.com. You've seen Oklahoma do it, bringing in offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. That's probably going to end up saving Brent Venables' job. You've seen Utah do it with Devon Tampier, and their offensive coordinator had success early. It's like, where do you find that winning combination? You've seen at the higher levels, Danny White, probably arguably the best athletic director in the country, bring Josh Heupel with him from UCF. You've seen other examples of that. But are you able to do that and draw them to a place like Blacksburg, Virginia? Obviously, it's been done here before, but in this current landscape, is it the most attractive job for an athletic director or a head football coach right now? People want to point to different guys, but it's just there's a lot of factors at play that make it not the most appealing at this current state. And there's a lot of old guard that are still pulling the string. So there's a lot to shake out, but an extremely disappointing result that was, I think, really just an inflection point for the program. When you look at it, if you come out and you beat a Vanderbilt team, it's all ahead of you. You have ODU, you feel good about that. You have Wofford, you feel good about that. You have to go on the road to NC State, but they've shown weaknesses. That defense didn't look particularly strong. And then you have Wake, and you're staring at a really nice runway to give Pry and this admin another year of sort of leeway to keep some of the foundation. And now it looks like it's getting torn up by the studs. And I know it's really negative talk, and you can go run the table in the ACC and things completely change, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be that way. So I don't know where you go from here. It's really tough because the players have to make plays too. And there's a lot of really, really quality players from that 24-25 class that don't have any film. That it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes. And I think this weekend's going to be really, really big too, because don't look past Old Dominion University this year. I think they were picked 5th in the Sun Belt, but so far they've put out good tape. Ronnie's on the hot seat as well. I mean, he knows he's got to perform, and it's not going to be a threatening crowd in Lane Stadium. It's going to be really tough hosting recruits and then seeing a half full Lane Stadium. I mean, it's a night game, and it's gotten to the point where it's not even anger. You didn't hear fire pride chants coming down at Vanderbilt if you were there. It was just deathly quiet. It was just apathetic. Walking up Beamer Way to the press conference, there was just a sense of just pure apathy, emotional detachment. And that's where you can really lose things fast. And that's where you can lose a generation fast. And you've already started to see that. I know I've sort of rambled. Like I said, it's a performance-based deal for me too. I should have stacked the show better throughout the day, but it's just you can watch the game back. I watch parts of the game back, and you're still just sort of taken aback. It's a lot of the things you've been beating the table for, but now it's just so abundantly clear in front of everyone's face that it's just really, really tough. So yeah, I don't know where this team goes. Like I'm even talking about like my prediction for this week. I think they get past the ODU team, but I don't know. Like this is a really, really good Old Dominion football team coming in, and it just haven't had a good sample size in back-to-back weeks. I thought you felt really promising about South Carolina. Now you'll see South Carolina and Vanderbilt play, and you'll see what's up and sort of know what you have. But it's really, really challenging. Haven't felt more apathetic from just the students as well. I mean, it's been a tough go of it for the last couple of years, but just even walking around campus today, people are completely checked out on the program, and they just it's hard for people to comprehend on why changes can't get made. And I think for a lot of people, that is really hard to get your head wrapped around on why changes haven't been made already at some of those positions. So we'll see, because alignment on the board and different things is in a place right now where I think it's advantageous for certain things and not advantageous for certain things. So we'll try and have some insight on that for VT Scoop. As of right now, not hearing anything's imminent. Now, like I said, this weekend can really expedite and change some things. But as of right now, it doesn't sound like anything's going to be imminent for changes, which is definitely disheartening for a lot of people. And it's going to be really tough because the local community is going to feel it. They're going to feel it when game days are less active. And it's not like this staff doesn't want to win. Like Brent Pry goes in and he does his job every day. It's just not to the standard right now. And like you said, you get compensated well to do a job. And if you don't, consequences and hard conversations. You got to have hard conversations, as we like to say. I'll go through the chat here a little bit. I don't know if I even touched all the points I did, but this sort of even feels like the one I did on Saturday, or was it Sunday morning in Lane Stadium, where it's just so hard to get your thoughts all together after just a pure, thorough pantsing like that was against Vanderbilt. Like you can go into the X's and O's and say the defensive line didn't get pushed. The linebackers had really bad gap integrity. The offensive line got no push. Some MAs by the wide receivers. Running backs maybe not breaking through some arm tackles. So it's just an overall indictment on the program from the top down, and a really tough day for Virginia Tech. Now, that's not to say they can't bounce back, but it's just a really tough road with a lot of odds stacked against them. Just looking in the chat. ACC schedule looks even tougher with road games against FSU, North Carolina State, and Georgia Tech. UVA looks good too. Any shot they have the talent to run the table in the ACC? I don't think so. I predicted 7-5 to start the year, and that was under the impression they beat Vanderbilt. Now, no, since they're not going to go run the table in the ACC. Florida State is a really good program. You're going on the road. Georgia Tech is a really good program. You're going on the road to play them. Miami's coming here. Miami's looks every bit of a top 5 program. I know Miami is what it is to a lot of people, like as they stand, but coming into Blacksburg is not what it used to be. Like that is not going to be a threatening environment in November. It's going to be cold, but it's not going to be challenging. In North Carolina State's had the number for even how mediocre they've been as well. You're going on the road there. It's and especially if you go into that UVA game and you lose in Charlottesville, it's just going to be an indictment. I think they have the talent overall. Like it is a good team. It's just, can you stay bought in? But what does quarterback play look like? It really hinges a lot on that. And through 2 games, you haven't seen that. And you're not going to have another opportunity for a couple weeks at North Carolina State to make a statement. And even by then, people are already checked out. Like in my short time covering the team, I've never seen a reaction. Now, granted, like don't buy into all the message board culture and just read that as the overall reactionary basis, because that's always going to be a little crazy. But at some point, those people are right. At some point, those people who are banging on the table, that vocal minority becomes the majority overall. And You can't gaslight them, as it was a term today. You can't sort of try and tone them down. You have to just accept that's the reality. And that's become the reality. Like, changes are going to have to be made, and it's going to be tough, but it's just what happens when you're operating in essentially the big leagues now. Like, this is not the same college football. This is not Frank Beamer's time where you can sort of give him just extended runway to figure it out. It's a lot of money on the line, a lot of people at stake, and I understand that. So it's not a joking matter. Like, a lot of people are obviously on the hook for this, but it's the way it is. It's hard to win, but there's consequences for not holding up to the standard that you're signed on to do. So I don't think they're going to be able to run the table in the ACC. I think they'll be lucky to finish 500 in ACC play. And they got to try and skirt their way through conference play, because you can't overlook anyone at this point. If the team comes out like they played in the second half, they won't win another game this year. The talent profile, they could go beat anyone on that schedule. Had they showed the consistency through 2 games to do that? No. Especially on the offensive side of the ball. Converting in the red zone. Making the plays at the quarterback position. They haven't shown that. And I'm not sure if you can find anyone on the roster right now who can do that. What happened to Kamara? It was like he wasn't even on the field compared to the South Carolina game. I thought this too. I watched it back, actually, maybe changed my perception a little bit, because I sort of did agree with you that even at times I was like, where is he? I thought the defensive line on first watch was not, and they didn't get as good push as they did in South Carolina, but they absolutely mauled those unexperienced interior linemen for South Carolina. And that's why I'm kind of interested to see South Carolina versus Vanderbilt, because when South Carolina played South Carolina State, you definitely saw some of that with their offensive line as well. Just the overall offense hasn't been dynamic for them. Special teams has really bailed them out. Fakari Swain had another punt return, maybe even 2 against South Carolina State. So they've been able to put up points like that, but their offense has not been great. I think overall that defensive line unit will be fine if they can all stay bought in. If Gilliam can still be a spark plug and not turn people off in a way with his sort of energizing, if he can just get everyone to rally behind him, and that's going to be hard. It's like, how do these guys even come out and bounce back? I know there's questions about Kamara, but just overall, I saw questions about the gossip about that infighting. It's just, how do these students, and I know a lot was made about the players only meeting, but how do you internally get rallied back in an age where it's so centrally focused on, like, even me just being on camera, like, it's so focused on marketing yourself and getting whatever your brand. How do you get together and get set out on accomplishing a team goal? I don't know. Is there enough cohesion in the locker room where you have 20 brand new high school guys who don't know the standard, 30 transfers who just came in, don't really know the Virginia Tech standard, and even the guys who have been there are still trying to figure out and build back to that old Virginia Tech standard? Are they playing for it's just hard. How do you rally back and go put out a good performance? It's going to be telling, because if you come out flat against ODU, don't get me wrong, I'm giving them enough material to go off of. Everyone has. Outlets, national outlets now have their names written all over it, saying how much of a disappointment and failure they are. So, there won't be a lack of motivation. It's just, will you be able to stay engaged? And I don't know. But overall, Kamari Copeland, I thought he had an all right game. Obviously, wasn't as much of a game breaker as he was against South Carolina, but I think he'll bounce back. I think he probably is the best player on this defensive side of the ball, and he should have a much better game against ODU's front. Vanderbilt, said it even going into the game, man, they added through the portal at that offensive line position, and Barton, Barton Simmons, former 24/7 guy over there, he found really quality height, weight, speed guys. And I guess for the offensive line, just height, weight, build guys that had a lot of beef, maybe not the experience, but those guys were maulers. They're just a lot bigger on that offensive line. And they absolutely handled Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech doesn't have that true nose guy. They have Gilliam and Copeland, sort of that smaller 3-tech guy playing inside, and they're just not those true space eaters. So maybe Sam Stevens just doesn't have the personnel that he needs to run the scheme that he wants in the NFL. In the NFL, you can go get any guy you want. In college, you're a little bit more refined. And maybe that's the issue with his scheme, is it's not being able to fit to the players. But then you've heard so much about him fitting the scheme to the player's strength. So I don't know. It's a 2-game sample size. You can't hardly draw any conclusions from that second half. You don't really know what you have against South Carolina. So if you can tell, I'm a little lost right now. Where does Virginia Tech go from here? I'm not sure. But we will have updates for you on VT Scoop as they come out. Question from Jake here. How do you let an opposing team show up with more energy than you in that kind of environment? Blows my mind. Yeah. Jake saw him on the sideline pregame. It was pretty cool going to high school together. But yeah, that's tough. Like I said, talking to all these recruits today, going through it, I know it drives people up a wall when you hear what was the highlight, or just even just talking with what was the highlight, what was the most interesting thing, and it's always the atmosphere. The town looked really cool on game day. The overall fan support, even getting recognized by fans when you're a recruit. And then Enter Sandman, super electric. And then they're like, oh no, I left by halftime. And it's like, good, like that you left by halftime. If that doesn't get you ready to play 60 minutes football, it's just like I said, what do you rally behind? Do you rally behind the entire world turning against you and your head coach and your AD and your back's against a wall, but your back's been against a wall starting into the year? And now you've had 2 really big opportunities to do that. And now you won't be in another primetime spot to really show them wrong for the rest of the year. So yeah, that energy and effort, and that comes from the top down. It does. It's a culture thing. It comes from the head coach, respecting the message and then running with that. And if you don't have 105 guys all bought into the same message, you come out flat like that, and you can't expect to win any football games at any level, let alone the collegiate level, let alone the Power 4 level. So it's definitely dark times when you see that. Is Pop that bad? I know Evan says drones won't get replaced, but a few more games like this, they have to try Pop. Nothing is off the table, I would say. Right now, Kyron Drones gives them the best opportunity to win games. I think they believe that. With this makeshift offensive line, I think Kyron Drones still does give them the best chance to win football games. Philip Montgomery does not have a quarterback that he recruited on the roster. You sort of have what you have at this point. With this makeshift offensive line, you saw Pop out there. He didn't throw the football even in garbage time. I think he had like 5 runs or whatever it was, and the one where he goes out there and he gets stripped and fumbles. Behind a makeshift offensive line, Pop is just innately he's not a big quarterback, and he's really struggled with pressure in the past, as you saw in the Minnesota game, in the Duke game. When he's pressured, it can become a struggle. It's really grim at that quarterback position. When Kyron, it's just 3 years as a starter at Virginia Tech, you have not seen that leap in progression. 2023, you saw things with the completion percentage and being able to, 17-3 touchdown to interception ratio, making plays with his legs. He has the frame. He has all the tools that you would want. He just can't put it all together to play the quarterback position effectively at the Power 4 level. And I know there's a lot of games left, but it's just the sample size is there. So nothing is off the table for the rest of the year. It's just that's a tough switch once you make it. And there's becoming unrest with people in the skill position rooms because of that very thing. How do you keep guys bought in? If you even watch back some of the routes with Aiden Green and different guys and being engaged, it's hard when you can't get guys and you can't deliver the football on time. It's hard to keep guys engaged for games. But do you make that change? Does someone come in and excite and elevate everyone? I don't know. It's really tough. This is going to be really, really hard. It's going to take more than a halftime speech that he gave to get them up for an ODU game and the rest of the season. It's going to be a lot. I mean, we'll talk to the guys and they'll go out there and they're going to play the game, but it's going to be really, really hard to keep the locker room engaged. Yep. A lot talking about the linebacker play. And I think that's been maybe the most perplexing thing of Brent Pry's entire tenure at Virginia Tech. When he comes from Penn State, I mean, obviously it's still pitched to all the recruits about Micah Parsons, this and everything that he's done at the linebacker position. Chris Marv was a linebacker guy. Xavier Deeby's on staff. Obviously, was an All-American at linebacker. Sam Skeefus was just a linebackers coach in the NFL last year. And at some point, it can't just be a personnel thing because you've been here for 4 years now. And if you really needed to fix that, you got to go out and recruit the guys that can go make the plays. I think Noah Chambers is going to be a really good linebacker. And you're at the point now where you might have to start burning shirts. Sheldon Robinson, Noah Chambers, like these guys have shown you through 2-3 games at their transfers, like you might have to just start burning shirts because like that has maybe been the biggest pitfall of Brent Pry's tenure is that linebacker position. When you talk about the Jaden Kellers of the world, the Kelly Lawsons, it just hasn't been solid. And even the guys like Caleb Woodson he had a really struggling start to the year, let alone just off the field stuff as well, which, I mean, everyone deserves grace, but it's just been a really, really tough spot at that, especially at that linebacker position for 4 years. And it goes back to the offensive line. Like, if you see these issues, it's on you to go hire like coaches to go recruit the positions. And at the end of the day, you're the one who decides the numbers at each position group that you take, the bodies that you take. And if there's holes in the roster, that's on you to fix those holes and be able to adjust. And at linebacker, if you can't coach just tackling, gap integrity, or even if it can't just purely be a personnel, like, that can't be an excuse at this point. You've had 4 years to go out and recruit your personnel. It's just that is so puzzling, because I think that was the biggest issue against Vanderbilt. You can look to the defensive line. You can look to the secondary getting cooked on different plays, not making plays on the ball. But it's really that linebacking core that I think was still the biggest issue. So that is be pretty ironic if that's the position group that did him in, along with the offensive line, because for the last 4 years, it's been, if they stay healthy, it's makeshift. Drones doesn't have any time. He's rolled. And it's just been a lot of the same things. And I know it's new coordinators. I know it's a lot of new personnel, but it's the exact same issues. And you've had abundant amount of time to make the changes. And there's just a lot of people making decisions that have never been in that position before and might not ever be again. So just a lot of people that people want to stay loyal to and have made some overruling decisions on different things that will eventually end up being the nail in the coffin. So it's a tough business, and loyalty is a very valuable thing, but it can kill you if you're not agile. Just left a class where we talked extensively about how important it is to be agile in the business world, and you have to be. It's just tough. So I'm dancing around some things there, obviously. I know I've opened it up a little bit, but it is what it is. Just sort of laying it like I see it. The first half wasn't that great on D. You could see the writing on the wall. Yeah, I touched on this, obviously. Like, Quentin Reschke goes and makes a great play on the ball. And I think he was one of the best. I think he honestly probably, just even thinking about it without watching the tape or having everything in front of me, I think he was probably the most effective defensive back, maybe defender the entire game. Obviously, he goes up with pick, made some really big-time tackles. I mean, a lot of those tackles shouldn't have gotten to him in that second and third level, but he did, and he made a lot of those tackles. But you definitely saw the writing on the wall. Pavia, I mean, Jerry Kill's on the other side scheming up. He was taking whatever he wanted. Like, you made a guy who's a running threat look like a really dynamic passer. Now, Pavia's in Heisman conversations. He's just a competitor. But this is a guy where you're just so bent on making him stop the run and force him to throw. And then when he throws, he still lights you up. Like, if that's your scheme and you come in with that game plan and you force him into that and he still beats you, like, you can't even really tip the cap, because, like, I mean, tip the cap because he had a great day. But I don't think that's just a one-off sample size. Like, it was just obviously not a great plan going in and not executed well. Yeah, what's frustrating is that we saw the potential of this team in the first half. Definitely, when, like I said, it's what makes it so frustrating is when you're up 20-10 and it's halftime and you're in Lane Stadium and it's still staying full. So much has been made of on the message boards, Twitter, on all social media platforms, different generations saying in 2005 we would have stayed in Lane Stadium for 4 full quarters and been screaming our tails off. And then when you have that, I keep going back to it. It's still the lifeblood of college football. You have to recruit. And I know hot seat, other coaches recruiting against Virginia Tech for that exact reason. You have to recruit. You have them in the house. It's a display of your program. And to come out that flat with everything on the line, everything is still in front of you. It's just very, very perplexing. I still go back, like, I'll never forget, like, walking up Beamer Way, and I'm like messing up the score on that just quick 2-minute video I filmed, because it was just like, I was like, okay, it had to have been 34-20. Like, there's no way they scored 5 touchdowns on 5 drives. And Vanderbilt tried to take it back. Vanderbilt had false starts. They had holding penalties. They had everything you could imagine, and they just dog walked Virginia Tech's defense in Lane Stadium. Lunch pail. Culture, like, it's just, things have been ripped up, and it's going to take a massive overhaul. Where does Virginia Tech go from here? It's a great title. I wish I had an answer. I wish I could even give insight at this point. At this point, it sounds like nothing is imminent. This game, this weekend, I keep saying it's going to be big, but it really won't change much except timelines. If you make the trip up, safe travels. It's going to be an empty, bleak feeling for a night game. We'll have updates on recruiting, visitors, list, and a lot more coming from that. And the fallout potentially from that. We'll have all the updates. And like I said, there's going to be a lot of news. The best thing about college football is obviously the games on the field. And when you're 2 games in and it feels like the season's already sold, it's tough. But now so much of it is off the field. And we'll have you updated on all that. I know it's not the most enjoyable thing, but we'll keep you updated. Try and give you the most unbiased. Hopefully, obviously this got a little emotional, but just direct coverage and just calling it like I see it. Trying. But like I said, can't even stack a show. So just went 35 minutes or so rambling. Hopefully there was some underlying message in there. Probably going to try and do another one of these tomorrow. We talked to Brent Pry at his press conference at noon. We'll see what comes out of that. Talking to Tomas Remack and Tucker Holloway as well. So we'll have some insight from that at least, or some content to go off of. We'll see if any off the field questions are out. I'm sure there will. Hopefully get an update on the offensive line because that's still a massive question. Got some early indications, but don't feel comfortable sharing anything about Johnny Garrett or Montavious right now. I'll have some insight later in the week. We'll definitely drop on the site, as well as some other guys who are a little nicked up. But appreciate the support, everyone. When the apathy comes, you can definitely see it. But even right now, I appreciate everyone in here right now. It does mean a whole heck of a lot, the support. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride. But yeah, we'll keep you covered on it. Appreciate everyone jumping in here tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Not sure. Follow me on X at Kolby_Crawford. Subscribe to the YouTube. Post a link there or on the site whenever I lock that in. But definitely dark days here in Blacksburg and not much light at the end of the tunnel, at least impending. So that'll do it for Kolby's Corner tonight. We'll see you next time. Appreciate it. Good night and God bless.